Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss about creating custom functions. Okay, and I'm going to explain it to you, and we'll start with a very simple example. Students, I'm going to make a output which will be something like petals or flowers would be displayed. Okay, and then we'll try to animate it also. Okay, and it's going to be very simple, student. You'll understand it. So to make a single flower, okay, I'll go back to my program and say I define a size of my screen, so 300 comma 300, and let's start with a simple ellipse. Okay, ellipse I'm defining as the x-axis 150, y is 150, 100 is the width, 100 is the height. Okay, and to it let me just give a background color. Background is a function name which we use. These are the predefined function which I'm using. Background ellipse, say wanted red 255, and so I wanted a proper, say, like a green color. Okay, and to this ellipse I want it to be a bit red, so not completely red, or I can give it a complete red color. So I'll write a fill command to it, 255 comma 0 comma 0. Okay, see, bit of reddish color will add here. Okay, so let's see the output soon. So I should be getting an ellipse. Okay, an ellipse appears on the center. It's the x-axis, the y-axis, and then the width is there, 100, 50 and 50 divided, and the height also from the center point, 50 and 50 divided. Okay, now student, let me add up. Now since we want to make a complete flower, I'm going to add petals to it. Okay, four petals on one on the left, upper right, okay, bottom left and bottom right. So four petals would be added. The petals are also ellipse only, but they will be overlapping it, they will be overriding it, okay, above it. So, and with a bit of change in the coordinates, the x and y would be changed, the width and height would be kept same. So student, I will add one more ellipse here. Say if, to the fill I'll specify some green to 127. Okay, and oh, sorry, red color. Okay, and say 127 comma 255 comma 0. Okay, and then I'm adding one more ellipse. Okay, considering this to be as the center, this is the center ellipse. So what I'm changing is that the x and y would change, students. Now where would the x would come? X would come, the first petal towards the left side, so I'll name it also. This is the upper left petal. Okay, the upper left will be having two changes. It will be changing the x-axis and also in the y-axis. Okay, the x and y-axis would be, I'll 100 I'm defining as x. Okay, and y also I'm defining as 100, and say width and the height, width and height I'm keeping it fixed. So now when we see this ellipse, okay, yeah, it is appearing, and to this I'll define with some fill color. Okay, let's say I'll use the color which is specified here. Okay, and it's 255 128. Okay, so say 255 and say 128. Okay, so this is the code for getting an upper left ellipse, and this is would be the code for getting the center pattern. Okay, so yes, so we are getting an ellipse here. Okay, now I want to plot another ellipse which will be on the upper right corner. Okay, so what should be changed? When it should come somewhere this side. So again the x would be increasing, the y would remain the same, and the width and height would remain the same. So I will just write here further, upper right petal. Okay, an ellipse would appear I'm trying to set a difference of 50. So this was 150, this was 100. So let's x-axis would increase to, I'm changing it 200 this time. Y would remain the same, width would remain the same, height would remain the same. Okay. So yes, so I'm getting another petal. Now the third petal will come on the down, okay, this side. So what should be changing, student? The as compared to this petal, the x-axis would remain the same, but y would be increasing. Y would come down. So let's go to the petal. It will be okay below, okay, or upper, or you can say down left petal, okay, and say ellipse. X-axis is 100. This time y would be increasing because y is going down. 200, 100 and 100. Okay, so then when I run my program, you can see a third ellipse coming up. Then the fourth ellipse, student, x also would be increasing, and the y also would be okay, would be kept. Y would be similar to this line, this ellipse. So well, finally I'll draw down right petal, okay, ellipse. This time the x would be changing. X would be 200, y would be 200, 100 and 100. So when we run the program now, we can see an proper, okay, flower getting displayed. Fine, student, till here it is fine. I'm using coordinates, okay, and I'm getting some answer. We can further modify. Let's deal with variables. So I will add variables now. Int flower x, okay. A variable would be helpful to me when I want to make multiple flowers, okay, without requiring to change, okay, each time. Say for example, I now one flower has appeared, students. I want to make one more flower. So should I be copying and pasting, okay, another flower with other dimensions? Third flower again copy and paste. Fourth flower again copy and paste with varying dimensions. No, we need to use some workaround like, okay, reusability. Make it once and use it many times. Okay, and variable would be helpful to me during that time. So considering the center ellipse which we plotted, okay, of 150, 150, x, flower y, and the petal size, the width and height. So I'm defining three variables in petal size, okay, and this is was 100. Now students, if you notice up all the ellipses, okay, you find the x and y are changing, okay, 100, 100, this time 200, 100. So there's a difference of 50, 50 pixels every time, okay. So let me use it, define a variable with the name say petal distance, and take petal size which is 100 divided by 2. So it will give me a number which is 50. This would be helpful for me, students, when I want to develop multiple flowers, okay. So I am defining a variable with a petal distance which is give me answer of 50. Let's use it. Let's change the values now. So I need to get the same value which is 100. So I'll comment this now here. Now this is commented. I'll make an ellipse of these values only 100. So flower x minus, okay, flower x minus petal distance is 50. So it will give me a value of 150 minus 50, which is 100, which we need for this this number. And then again flower y minus petal distance, comma petal size, comma petal size. So student, I've commented the ellipse function which was asking for a fixed number and change it to variables now. Of course, when I see the output, it won't be any change. It should appear the same. Okay. The same thing will apply for the other variables also. So just ensure that we comment the old one. Okay. Control C and paste it here. So now I need 200 value, so flower x plus petal distance, so it will be 150 plus 50. Flower y minus petal is 100, this is fine. Then we come to this else, we'll comment it here. It is flower x minus petal distance 100, fine, this is fine. 100 comes flower y, it should be plus petal distance to give me 200, and we comment it here, paste. This should be changed to, this should be 200, the flower x plus petal distance and flower y plus petal distance. Okay, so now when I run my example, I'll be getting the same ellipse which appears here. Okay, so student, in this example till now I have not introduced you to the concept of functions or custom functions. Okay, though we have been using functions already. So in the size, when I say size is the function, is a predefined function. Background is a predefined function. Predefined means what? It is already created and given to us. We just need to use it to get our task done. So some functionality is defined. When I use this ellipse, students, I am getting an ellipse appearing. When I give some parameters to the ellipse, I am getting an ellipse appearing. So this ellipse is a predefined function. Already programmers have written some code in that function, which, and when I just call it, okay, give some inputs to it, I'm getting some answer. Now students, we are having something which is called as a predefined functions, which we are already using it. Okay, custom function means what? We will be creating our own functions. Okay, but why is the need for creating the functions? I'm getting this output here without functions also. Okay, and it is looking fine. Student, creating a function, there is a need, there is a necessity. Take for example, let's take a real world example. You hire a servant, you bring a servant from some village. Okay, he's very new to the city environment, and he doesn't know how to use all the electronic gadgets which are at home for making, for cooking and all. So what probably a person would do, say day one, he or she will, okay, will assist the servant. On first day, you will explain to the servant, okay, how to on the gas, how to light it, okay, how to cook things. So you are basically training him. Okay, the process, say you want to make a tea. So what you do, okay, you tell him, okay, these are the step one which you need to do, step 1, okay, step 2, so step 3. So then like this you will be explaining him on day 1. Okay, and all the steps what you do, you tell him, okay, see this step which I explained, what output is for making a tea, make tea. And what you expect student is that, say the next day, you just tell your servant to make tea, and what you expect is that the servant should perform all the steps which you had explained him on the first day. Okay, need not be like again getting up and making the tea yourself only. Okay, because you have taken the effort to explain him one at one time, so you expect him to make the tea second time on his own. So student, this is the, in the real world is like this, in the virtual world also functions plays the same role. You create a function, define a body to the function, okay, write whatever instruction you want to give, and then what you do is that you can call the function n number of times. I can, day 1, day 2 I call make tea, day 3 I tell him make tea. So whatever is written inside the make tea body, all that would be executed, all that would be performed. Okay, so it's consumes space, it takes up less space. Okay, we write it once and we can use it n number of times. Okay, same students, this idea I want to use it in my program also. When it comes to making multiple flowers, okay, when I want to make multiple flowers, I don't want to be coding or copying and pasting and changing the values every time. I want it in such a way that I just change the basic values and I get an output. Okay, and for that thing students, so what I will do is, okay, I'll be creating functions. Now functions comes in two types. It could be a function with which doesn't return a value, and function which returns a value. What do you mean by that? Say you talk about random function, which we have already used before. Random, if I write random 2, what it generates? It generates me a number between 0 and 1. But this it generates me a number, okay? It does a task, it generates a number between 0 and 1. okay, and it gives me some result which I store it in a variable, say flip. Okay, so function, every function, it does some task. Okay, it does some task, it gets some answer, but the random function does some task and gives me some, returns some answer to me, which I store it in a variable. If I don't use the variable here, okay, then where the answer would be printed. So I use a variable to display what the random function is generated. Same thing, ellipse is also a predefined function. Ellipse function also does some tasks, but I don't store the ellipse output in a variable. I don't write like this int x or something. No, this is an error. Okay, so every function does some task, but some function returns a value. Okay, they have a return type. So this time it is of type float, it returns me some answer, and some functions don't return a value, but they do some task. The functions which don't return a value, in technical terms they are called as void, void, void functions. Okay, ellipse is one example of void function, size is one example of void function, background is one example of void function, fill is one example of void function. Okay, so student, we have two categories or two type of functions. So I'll be using, to start off with, I'll be creating function which is a void type. Okay, and we know the purpose. There's a block of code which I've written it once and I want to reuse it n number of times. It's like the make t. You make the t once and want to call it again and again, okay, with basic changes, minor changes. Okay, so for that reason we are starting with creating a function. I will also introduce to you some predefined functions. There is a function with the name setup. Setup is a function, is a predefined which gets called automatically when we load the program. But this function gets called only once, the setup function. Okay, and there is a function with the name draw. Draw is also a predefined function and it gets called, okay, 60 times in 1 second. 60 times in 1 second. Okay, means it's like I can use in a form of a loop also at times. Okay, so we have two functions which are predefined. Okay, if I just see the output by making these changes, again the petal, the flower remains the same. Okay, now student, what I will do is, so let's modify things further. Okay, so these are the two functions which I use. Okay, now whatever statement this ellipse part for making the ellipse we have written, I will put this ellipse part in a user defined function, say draw flower. Okay, just change a bit. I'm not using draw right now immediately, but I'm creating a user defined function which is having a void type, is not going to return anything. The name of the function is draw flower and the curly braces is opened up here, and this is the complete body of the draw flower function, and the task is to make a flower. Okay, draw a flower. Now student, when I try to run this example and see, okay, I won't be getting any output. You can see the setup function code is called, the color of the background is changing, but the draw flower is not called. Why so student is that whenever you create a user defined function, you need to explicitly call it. You need to call that function. Okay, whereas the predefined functions, okay, setup and draw, they get called automatically. So a user defined function needs to be called, or also in predefined also ellipse is there, but when you want to use ellipse you need to call ellipse, then only that output would appear. Same thing happens here. So draw flower needs to be explicitly called, like your ellipse and other function which needs to be explicitly called. Okay. So since I've defined the body of the function, but I'm not calling it anywhere. I'm not written anywhere call the draw flower, so I'm not getting the output of the flower. Okay. So student, what I will do now is I will change things a bit. I'll write void draw, which I know that it implicitly gets called. Okay, as soon as I get the output, the setup and draw. Setup is the first one to be called. It called only once, and draw function get calls n number of times. That is 60 times in 1 second. So let us prove this point. What I'm saying to you. So, but draw and setup gets called implicitly, automatically as soon as you run your program. So I'll, in the draw function, I'm calling the draw flower. function. Okay, so now when I run the program, you can see the same output you're getting. Okay. Now let's change things a bit. Now I will be explicitly telling what parameter to use to draw. So what I will do now is I will remove. Okay, this was the content. Okay, so I'll remove these. Okay, I'll come to the draw flower, and the values were there. I'll give him 150 comma, or you can okay, I'll give it directly 150 comma 150 comma the petal size, which was 100. Okay, so I'm giving it explicitly, and now these are the called as the arguments which I'm passing, okay, to the draw flower. So now they need to accept it here. So now I'll write up here int flower x. So means what? When you call the draw flower function, okay, it is not going empty handed, it's going with some values. And when it is coming with some values, the draw flower should be equipped, should be ready to accept what is coming from it. So I'll define parameters here, flower y, and say int petal size, int petal size. Okay, and see, okay, so let me reuse the petal size. So I define it only once here. Okay, and this is the body, so nothing changes to be done here. Flower is there, and okay, I need to also give petal distance. Okay, so let me see petal distance. Okay, so what we'll do is we define, let me keep all this part, command X, and let me paste it in the draw here. Okay, so we have, you can write it this way. So I'm passing, okay, I'm basically, there's a draw function being created, and to the draw function I'll be passing some parameters. Okay, okay, so let me define the petal size here. So say I'll remove this from command X, and the petal size one, because a petal distance would be needed in the program, so I'll define it. So now this is the draw function which calls the draw flower with some parameters, the way in which I want the draw flower to be made. Okay, that the x axis, y axis, and the size, and the petal distance defined here. So when I run my example, I'm getting the same, I'm getting the output. Okay, now student, what the benefit of it? See the benefit now, though, because then why so much of code is to be written if you're getting the same output. Okay, so now let's see the difference too. Now the plus point is that if I want to draw one more flower, I don't have to write further much code. I can just change the parameters from here. Students, I'll use the because this document I'll be sharing with you. So let me use these parameters. Okay. So if I want to make 4 different flowers, I'll write draw flower x, y, and the width height, xy width height, xy width height, but the body of this function is only written once here, draw flower body. Okay, it's only written once, so I'm consuming space, and okay, it's only one time written. Okay, and what is changing is the numbers are changing. Okay, which we call, these are the arguments, so these are called the parameters. Okay, so now when I run my example, I can call draw flower n number of times. You can see up here. Okay, now for the center pixel, yes, for the center, okay, yes, see the ellipse I forgot to change, so this would be flower x, flower y, petal size, and petal size. So now when I run my example, you can see 4 different flowers coming up, and we have written it only one time, how to draw the flower, only one time, so we are not repeating it again, but we are calling n number of times what student? The functions like the make t. The make t code has been written here, and we are telling him on a daily basis, okay, make t, make t, make t. So draw flower, draw flower, draw flower, draw flower. Okay. Now student, it becomes, see, so I hope you understand student how, what the benefit of creating a function is. So to avoid, so see, if we are getting 4 flowers, but the code for making the flower is written only once. So we are calling this function many times by just changing the values. So according to the values, a new flower would be made. Okay, student, you can customize it further. If I need, I'll just comment this part. I can use multi-line comments. Okay, by putting a forward slash asterisk and asterisk forward slash. Okay, and let me call draw flower this time. Okay, the size, I'll change it to 800 800. Draw flower this time, but to make randomly on the screen. So let's take the help of the random function. X-axis 800. When I say 800, student, means what? Okay, 800 means, okay, it will be a number generated between, okay, 0 to 800. But student, this random function returns a fractional value, and here is integer. So also I have to do typecasting. Okay, so this I have to do typecasting here, so that it accepts an integer, or other way could be is that I could have changed this to float, but fine, let's see. Okay, so it would be 800 first one, then otherwise student, what I will suggest is that, so if I write up here random, second one also 800, so, and the third one students, I write, say random 10 comma 25. What do you mean by 10 comma 25 is that you are, see, random by default start from 0. If you want to define a starting number, you start from, not from a 0, but say from 10, okay, or some another number. So you can write a starting range. Also student, better I change to float. Okay, float. So not many places I will have to change, only the first parameter which it accepts, and this is also random, so this also change to float. Okay, and this is third one also change to float. So let's see, when we say about the draw function, how it makes. So draw function this time is calling draw flower, okay, and is passing a random number. But when to prove to the fact that the random function, the draw function calls 60 times in a second, okay, it won't happen that only one flower would come. If it would have been called, the draw function only called one time, it randomly it would have given me one flower. Okay, but see the output streams now. So see, it is randomly on the screen, multiple flowers are coming now, students. So this is a part of a start of an animation wherein we are using user defined functions, random, customizing things, okay, to suit our purpose. I hope you understand, students, understood the topic. I am also sharing with you the document, a master document, which you can refer, okay, and which we'll be using to work on it.